Years ago, and it was done. It's on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, I encourage that you watch it. It's fascinating. And what they do is they take people who were executives and developers from a lot of the social media platforms that were really popular at that time, and they start to talk through like kind of what they thought it was and then what it's become. It's fascinating. The guy who developed the like button on Facebook, he talked about what that did, not just for people, but what that did for him. The person who figured out, the genius, the person who figured out how to monetize Facebook. Like what social media platforms, they don't want you, they want your time. Because the more time they have of you, the more money they make from you just from the advertisements. And so he talked about how he would be at work all day and he'd be figuring out how to keep people connected and virtually addicted to this platform, and he'd spend all day trying to figure it out, and then he'd spend all night at home captive to what he had just created, and he couldn't break away. And this hold that technology had on him, had on the people in this documentary, has on you, has on me, it's important for us to talk to and talk about. Like, what does our brain health have to say, and what does it have to do with our behaviors, with our phones, with the gaming that we do? It's important to talk about. Brain health is incredibly important, and right here, statistically speaking, it wasn't like Nick and Justin from student ministry and Marissa and Emma, they said, hey, what should we do? What can we make up to try to have something to talk about? No, they looked at how things are going and what people are talking about and said, let's talk about that. And so when we think about brain health, when we think about how we're doing mentally, emotionally, it's important that we speak honestly about it. Too often, and I think this is more for your parents than it is for you, we don't take what's going on emotionally as serious as we should. Like if you have a broken arm, like if something's going on that's causing you physical pain, and someone says, hey, you should go see a doctor about that, you'd say, well, absolutely, like this thing is broken. Or like for you, those of you who are in athletics, if you had an injury that prevented you from being on the court or being on the field or doing whatever it is, being in the pool, being on the track, whatever it is, if you had something that was preventing you from being able to do what it is that you wanted to do, you would go and get help from that, wouldn't you? You go to somebody and say, hey, give me the ability to get back doing the things that I want to do. But when it comes to emotional, guys, be quiet. Hey, right over here. For the next little bit, just be quiet a little bit, all right? Thank you. Like if we were to have something like that were going on, we'd want to get help. So we need to talk about it here. Because if we don't talk about it here, who's going to talk about it? So just a question as we get going, like how would you rate yourself, your relationship? And this is for parents as well. How would you rate yourself? How are you doing with technology? Like honestly, like not how am I going to rate myself and see how everybody else sees how that I rate myself. How would I personally say, this is how I'm doing with this? Because what statistics will say, not church statistics, not faith statistics, what hard research would say is that if we're going to be honest, we would rate ourselves that we're not doing very well. That we would be well suited to take a little bit of a pause and an honest like inventory on how it's impacting our lives. Your generation, those of you who are students, your generation has never known life without this. And what we didn't do well for you is to figure out how to manage it. First motorized vehicle was developed in 1886. 1886 is when people started being able to drive. You want to know when the standardized brake was developed? Something that honestly could effectively stop the vehicle from moving. Wasn't developed until 1902. 16 years people were driving without the ability to stop the vehicle that they were driving. Now we think about that. If I were to say, hey, go into a car with whomever it is that's driving, go into a car, but here's the catch, you can't stop. You'd say, I'm not going to do that. That's crazy. That's just dumb. That's just not smart. We haven't developed a braking system for how we interact with technology. We didn't do that. All of this stuff was coming, and it came out so fast that we didn't have the opportunity. We looked at what it could do rather than what it would do. And it's hurting us. It's not healthy for us. I honestly think that even though we're more connected than we've ever been as a culture, we're more isolated. We're lonelier. Relationships. Somebody asked Jesus at one point, like, what's the most important thing in all of the commandments? What's the most important thing for me to do? Love God and love your neighbor as yourself. Because relationships are central. Very beginning of creation, Genesis chapter 2, God creates the first human being. God says it's not good for the human being to be alone. You need to put the human being in relationship. And what was intended to put us in relationship ultimately, unfortunately, ends up preventing us from being in really helpful, meaningful, substantive relationships. And it also does some other things to us as well. This is a picture of the type of phone that I had in my living room when I was your age. Right? We didn't have cordless. We didn't even have cordless. Ask your parents what a cordless phone was. Like when I was like this phone plugged into the wall, and the only ability we had to move while we were talking on the phone was how much cord we had. And so my parents were smart enough that they put a really long telephone cord on this phone that was in our living room. And so what we would do is we would take the phone, when we'd be on the phone, like we'd be talking to our friends, we'd take the phone and we'd go around the corner and we'd go into the bathroom and we'd close the bathroom door as much as we could so we could get a little bit of privacy. But one of the things that my parents had in our house, and it's the same thing that we have for our kids in our house, is in our house, in my house growing up and in the house that I have now, you can't close your door. You just can't close your door. If you're going to the bathroom, you can close the door. If you're taking a shower, you can close the door. If you're changing clothes, you can close the door. Outside of that, doors need to be open. And so when I was on the phone and trying to get in the bathroom where I could have a little bit of privacy, I always knew that door would be open. And the beautiful thing about that is my parents didn't want to know what I was talking about, but what they wanted to do is to provide me with an avenue to know that there was somebody who was paying attention to what I was doing. Like it had because how many times do any of us find ourselves in a situation and we're in a place where we don't have the ability to stop ourselves from doing the things that we don't want to do? And the younger you are, the harder that is. So like in my house, if my kids have a door closed, I just walk by, open the door, and I just open up. They'll be, dude, I want some privacy. And it's like, look, you're in a family. We do life together. We just don't do it apart. And it's not the fact that I want to make life, sometimes I want to make life miserable for my kids, but not most of the time. And I think like that was then, but this is now, and we don't know. We're just trying to figure this out. And now, over the course of the last few years, we're really starting to understand the impact that this is having on your emotional health, on your relational health, on your mental, on your brain health. And sometimes we wish that somebody would just, like, I was reading some research this past week, and it was done with a bunch of students in California. And these students in California, they were asked, they were about your age. They're late middle school, early high school, so probably a lot of your ages. You're not the late middle school. And some of the students that responded in the most tech-minded area of the United States, what would you like to happen with social media, with phones? And one of the most popular responses was that somebody would take them away. Last night we got home from being in Arizona for a week. We were there visiting my wife's parents who live there during the winter because it's stupid cold here right now. So we got out at the right time. It was awesome. Like when you guys were getting buried with snow, we were sitting in the desert. It was wonderful. But while we were there, our neighbors, my in-laws' neighbors, they had this dog. Our kids love dogs. They were playing with the dog, and my daughter was filming her, video recording herself playing with this dog, and she was going to FaceTime with one of her friends, and she wanted to show her friend this dog, and then this dog literally took it away. Take a look.
No. Okay. Hey. No, it's my phone.
Penny. Yeah, good girl.
Sometimes you wish somebody would just take it away because you realize that all the stuff that it's doing to you isn't all good. I'm not saying it's bad. Look, just before I got up here, you want to know what I was doing? I was praying, but just before, in the very beginning of the video, when that video clip was going, because this is the fourth group I've been able to talk to tonight, I was checking the Timberwolves score. Like, that's what I was doing. Like, I was on my phone. Like, I'm not saying that, like, if you're on your phone, that's a horrible thing. I'm not saying that at all. But if I would have come up here and I would have been like, oh, sweet, the T-Wolves won, and now they're up, like that would be bad. Like, there's a time where we need to put it away. Like, because what can be really good sometimes can turn really bad. You know this. It's not our fault. It's just the reality of living in a broken humanity. It's Jesus who says in John chapter 10, the thief's purpose is to steal and to kill and to destroy. There's a reality of life, and you don't need me to tell you this. You know this. There's a reality in life that sometimes there are things that just take life from us. And I think if we're going to be honest, when we talk about what our relationship that we have with technology ourselves and the relationship that we have with technology as a group and what it does to other people, we can say that just really, sometimes it just takes life from people. And so it's important as students that we put some boundaries for students, from themselves. But for any of you that are parents that chose to hang out with us tonight, thank you for being here because it matters. But it's not just for them. Sometimes it's for us too. It wasn't too long ago that I was sitting in the living room with my two kids. My wife wasn't home from work. Monday's my day off, so it was Monday. I was home. I'd been working all weekend. So like when my busiest time at work is when they're not at school. So I try to tell myself I need to be intentional about spending time with my kids when on my day off. So they got home from school. They get home from school. It's like 3:20 when they get home from school. And they got home, and I was sitting on my phone, and I was checking, well, I call it Twitter. It's now X. But I was checking that because there's a whole bunch of stuff that was happening in the sports world. It may have been like trading deadline or something like that. So my kids came home, and the first thing I said was like, hey, guys, how was your day? It was good. And then both of them came into the living room where I was sitting, and I didn't even know it. And my daughter literally said, Dad, get off your phone. I thought to myself, that's just not healthy. Like, it's important for me to say that to you so that you don't think like I'm somebody that's totally disconnected, and it's not something that I don't, like all of us struggle with what's our relationship with our phone actually look like. So I just want a couple things for us to think about because we'll have some time to talk about it. But as we think about it, the first thing when we think about our relationship with our phone is why are we doing it? Now, some of it is incredibly good. It's connecting with one another. Like, I think it's so cool that you guys have the ability, when rightly used, to be able to FaceTime with your friends. Like when we used to be away from my friends, like I'd have to talk to them. I couldn't see them. And now like sometimes I'll come across my kids and they'll literally be talking to a couple friends on FaceTime. And I think that's the coolest thing in the world. Like our daughter loves art. And so like there was one time where she and a friend, they were just like doing art together. Like, and I'm like, that's so cool that you get to share it that way. That's really good that they're doing it to connect. There's two ways to look at technology. There's active and passive. Active is you're actually doing it for a purpose. Yesterday we were trying to get home from Arizona and our flights kept getting canceled. And so my wife was using her phone in a very direct way, trying to get us back home. But there's also a passive relationship that we have with it. And I wonder how much time you spend just scrolling through, like with no objective at all. I wonder why it is that we do that. How much time do we spend just passively going through our phone, like just because we don't know what else to do with ourselves? I wonder what it would look like if you got home from school or whatever activity you did and you just said, like, you know what, I'm just going to put this thing away until tomorrow morning. You're like, no way, I can't do that. Well, I wonder if you could try. My kids are both in Power Life. My wife's a Power Life leader. We're going to be talking about this over the next few days. Why are we doing it? And then, who are we interacting with when we're online? I've been the most unpopular person all night, so I'll just continue it with you guys. But if there was one thing that I could get rid of, and statistically speaking, there's a game that's out there that's most often populated by teenage guys and young 20s guys that literally is changing the formation of their brains, of your brains, and it's Fortnite. If there's one thing I could get rid of right now, it'd be Fortnite. I know I'm the most miserable person in the world. But you know, right, that they've developed that game to control you. Not like control you like aliens, but to monopolize your time. There's a reason that once you click to the next level, like you can't save what it is that you've been playing, so you have to get to the next level. So once you get there, you can't save what you've been playing, so you have to get to the next level. So you can't save what like literally, they have it like put together in a way that you can't stop. And one of the things that happens also is like you have the ability, so many of you have the ability to chat with people while you're playing. And who are you chatting with? Or I think about like you young women. Like know who it is that you're interacting with. And know why it is that they want to interact with you. Like you're so valuable. And in the online world, there's so many people, and it's not just so many people who are all out there, but I think that, you know, in my role, I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that have realized that's one of the people that they were interacting with has taken something of theirs digitally that now that they're using against them. Like, don't do that. Like if you're doing something online and you have something of somebody's, whether or not they should have shared it with you or not, if you're sharing it with somebody else, stop it. In our area, both 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, and last year, there are young people that took their lives because people were just absolutely being horrible to them online. Stop. Like literally stop. There are so many of you that want to do so many things when you're done with high school, and I think that that's so cool. I can't tell you how many people that I know that weren't able to compete collegiately because of something they did once upon a time online. We got to be mindful. Like there's nothing that's anonymous online. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm just saying that because we need to be aware. Like it's just not anonymous. Been out in the hallways. The officer that's here, his name is Jason Hatcher. He's become one of my really good friends. We met because he serves us here at Hope, and we've become very good friends. I remember one time we were talking about something, this was a few years ago, and he said, Jeremy, I wish people knew how easy it was to trace every single thing they do online. You just need to know that. Like, you need to know that there are people that want to take your stuff and use it in a way that's going to impact you. When are you doing it? When are you online? When are you using your phone? When are you doing the stuff that you do? I don't think that you should have a phone in your bedroom. I just don't. And I know that makes me sound like I'm completely out of touch. We drove cars for 16 years without being able to stop them. And then somebody said, you know what? That's going to kill people. We need to stop doing that. This is me saying, I need to put some brakes on for you. I've told my kids that they will drive a vehicle before they will have a cellular telephone. They have phones that only work with Wi-Fi. They're like, why, Dad? That's so stupid. I'm like, well, because I know better how to keep you safe in a vehicle than I do on a phone. And I know that having it in your room is not healthy for you. we need to know where it is that we're hanging out online. Figuratively, literally. This just stuff is just so important. We're talking about this because statistics say, and you said, what it is that you need when it comes to brain health and your technology and your screens. People say more than ever how exhausted they are. The young workforce is saying that they're working so hard, they're working harder than anybody's ever worked before. And you want to know what hasn't changed in the last 200 years? That 40 hours at work is still just 40 hours at work. And you want to know what else has changed? Is that we don't have any margins in our lives to allow ourselves to rest. Like if you're sitting at school and you're so tired that you can hardly stay awake, or if you're going to practice or going to your extracurricular, you're so tired you can't stay awake, it's not the fact that they're working you too hard at practice or they're working you too hard at school. It's probably because you haven't given yourself the space just to rest, the margin, the free time to rest. And what is it that you're doing online? It's important to know what these things can do to you. Again, like I'm not saying any of these things in and of themselves are awful. Not at all. I told you that just before, maybe I told you that just before, that the way I keep track of the T-Wolves and the Twins and the Vikings, which are the teams I follow, is through Twitter, but X. That's just how I follow it. But it's also important, like you parents, to know it. Like the number one way that people get pornography right now is through Twitter. You want to know why? Because you can erase your search. You think you can erase your search history. One of the things that we've done with our kids, and like if you're a student and your parents aren't here, go home and say, you know what? Every so often I just want you to take my phone and just go through it without telling me in advance. And if you're a parent, do that with your kids. And if they say no way, say, well, it's not really your choice. Like I'm the parent, you're the kid. Like that's cool. Like we can talk about it, but it's not going to change it. Like with our son in Fortnite, he gets 2 to 3 times a week based on how things are going, and he gets it for 45 minutes, and when he has to set the timer, and if the timer goes off and he's still playing, he loses it for 6 months. I know, and his buddies think that we're the meanest people in the world, and I tell his friends, like I don't care. Because he doesn't need me to be his friend. He needs me to be his parent. So like for us, with our kids, and our kids are somewhat with it, they're normal kids. But with us, like at any given time, I get to tell them, give me your phone. And if you have a lock screen that I can't get in, and you have a password that I don't know, you lose it. 6 months. Just lose it. Like I don't care if that's going to make you the most out-of-touch person. Like, I'll get you to where you need to go, and I'll keep track of the things that you need to do. That's fine. 16 years we drove cars without brakes, and for the last 16 years we've been using phones and apps without putting any brakes on them. And we think that in order to put a brake on it that we're being mean? I guess I just don't buy that. Like, I think that you're too valuable for that. Like, you're created in the image of God. God loves you, and so do the people who are around you. Paul writes to the church, the Colossian church. He's basically saying, like, hey, don't get so caught up with the things that are right here that you lose sight of all of the beauty that's happening out here. He says, pursue things over which Christ presides. Don't shuffle along. And I think shuffling could be scrolling. Don't shuffle along, eyes to the ground, absorbed with the things right in front of you. Look up. Be alert to what's going on around Christ. That's where the action is. That's where life is. Seek the things that are going to last. Like pursue the things that, first and foremost, pursue the things that are eternal. Start to think about, what do I want with my life? Now, what do I want right here and what now? What can I not do without right here and right now? Like, what's going to last? What's going to get, like, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? Like, start thinking about these things. And what can I do right now to help myself to get there? I can tell you that one of the reasons One of the reasons why, and I'm into athletics. Like I went to school, I went to college because I wanted to coach baseball. Like I played college baseball, I wanted to coach baseball. That's what I was going to do with my life, and I was going to try to climb up the coaching ranks. But God had different plans for me. So I really am just interested in athletics and in sports, and I have a kid in my house who is. And sometimes I need to tell him and remind him, like, look, man, you want to spend time on technology where you have other people that are going out and spending time on the field, like they're going to beat you. Because what you've told me of what you want to do is to play the sport that he loves. He wants to play that sport. That's what he wants to do. So then go and work at it, invest it. But when you're investing in this, you're not investing in that. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go in life? Like, start to pursue the things that matter. And first and foremost, it's what brought you here tonight. It's a relationship with the God who created you, who loves you, who wants more for you. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm so thankful that you gave me the time. Like, I know I said be quiet at some point, but I say be quiet because I was the kid that always had to have somebody say be quiet. And so I feel comfortable doing that because that was me. But I'm so grateful and thankful that you allowed me to come and just to hang out with you for a little bit and maybe say some things that probably weren't the most popular, but I think that they're important. And so parents are going to leave, or adults are going to leave. There's an opportunity to go down to the well where there's some people who would love to just have a conversation, carry this conversation forward. And then students, you're going to go out and you're going to go out to your groups and you're going to have a great night. But before we do that, would you join me in a word of prayer? God, thanks. Thanks for being who you are, and thanks for creating us to be who we are. God, allow us to do whatever we can do to maintain or to develop healthy relationships with screens, with technology. Allow us to continue to work on our emotional and our spiritual, our physical, but also our mental, our brain health. We thank you for that. Thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who loved us so much that he died for us. We thank you. We pray this all in his name. And everybody together said, amen. All right, have a great night. We'll see you guys later.